Right, well after 1989 I had a long streak. I did a lot of other scales up till 2002. Being a tin plate collector myself, I then started tin plate again, except this time I did items that I could use myself, which was for me Ferris. As we know, Ferris only made 4 types of wagons, which is very poor. I started, well, first thing I did was I made a Ferris type frame on it. This was the experiment for the frame and everything to get it all right. And the first wagon I was going to do was the open wagon. But I realised it was a waste of time doing them, there's so many of them around. But utilising the same frame, I did go into later on, much later on, probably at the end, it was around about 2010, I did a wagon, open wagon, but I did a high-sided wagon. And these later wagons were the only ones I did in crinkle black. The actual first wagon I did on the four-wheeler was the tank wagon. Now this tank wagon was going to be done by Ferris, but because of finances and the death of O-Gage, they never went ahead and did it. And even in Bruce McDonald's book, he recognises, because he used to know and has spoken to the Ferris brothers, they verified they were going to do a tanker. That was the only model that we know they were going to do. So that's what I did. It's actually the tin plate frame with a polyurethane tank and ends on it, and my own Ferris type couplers that I stamped up myself. Right, after that, the next thing I did was the little New South Wales 4-wheel water tin tank, which is a tin. That was all tin, that's not polyurethane, that was just a folded bit of tin. Not a great deal of these were made at the time, probably. I was doing these in batches of 6. Some I did probably 2 or 3 batches. Some of them I think like this, I only ever did probably the 1 batch. Now, because you only sell them, there's only 1 of them in a train anyway, where you could have a few of them. After that, the next thing I did was the little crane car. These are things Ferris would never have thought up or anyway, but I utilised the same Ferris base. And in the beginning I was painting everything in the green to match Ferris, then decided it looked so boring I'd start doing other colours. After that, the next thing I did was the little stake wagon. Now, these are the rarest of the Ferris wagons to find anyway, the originals. But to make it different, look different, because when you put that up against in the same colour, it looks like a Ferris one, and we don't want anyone selling them as Ferris in the future. So I put a container on and sold them as a little container wagon, and you'll always tell it was always a container wagon because it'll have the hole in the bottom. So that was that one. That was the end of the 4-wheelers. Oh no, the tankers. Sorry. I did a box wagon, which is on the same 4-wheel frame. I wanted a decal for it, but I didn't want to do the same as the standard Ferris, so I did the car radio one instead. That's taken off the original prints that came off Ferris. Also in the end, towards the end, I did the little brake man to go with them on the same frame, Ferris type frame. It's just what we would call in any New South Wales model now. It's a representation of a HG, New South Wales 4-wheel one. After that, those 4 ones at the same time, not long after this tanker, I introduced a frame, bogie frame. Now that's only a copy of the bogie frame that Ferris made. Which is only the 36 tender frame. I just copied that, made my own frame, made my own bogies, and first thing I did was a bogie tank wagon. I then come in and did the Ferris decal in red, just to give it a bit of colour. And the tank wagons, the bogie ones, were the only ones that had the yellow Ferris on the end of it. I also did on the same frame, I also did a bogie container with the same container on it. Did a few of them. And right towards the very end, the last thing that I did was the bogie van. Using the same frame, made a van. There wasn't a lot of these done, probably I think 4 we had, I think. And I think I did 4 of them. I kept 1 for myself and sold the other 3. that was probably around about 2010 after I decided it. What I was going to do, which was going to be, and I didn't, was the little hopper, little 4-wheel hopper. I think they would have looked nice, would have been very nice, and I wanted a few for myself, but I'm afraid I moved again in 2010 and everything was put away and I never went back to it. So that's the prototype of it, so at least I kept one. But yeah. Totally all up, there was about 70 wagons done. Yeah. And most of these were sold to fellows that I knew that were like myself, that were running Ferris. Now the only other thing that what I did, and this was around the time I started this, was the locomotive. Now the New South Wales, this is the 30 class. Now Ferris was going to make this in the late 50s, but of course, you know, when O-gauge was dying off and they didn't want to fork the cost out, you know. Bruce MacDonald had the original, which was the prototype, and you'll see that in his book. What Bruce did for me, he measured it all up and did a drawing for me, and this is Bruce MacDonald's original drawing of it. That's the original drawing of the original Ferris, which is now in the museum. And off that, I copied. I did four of the fellows that I knew that were running at the time. I built 2 myself that were running. I sold another body to another fellow, and I sold all the parts for another fellow to make them up. And I believe the whole 4 of them are all up and running now. One of my mates I sold to, Harley Ferguson, who is a very big Ferris collector, was the only one that I did with actually had the Ferris motor in it. I reversed the 36 motor around because you couldn't get it in the other way. So, and that's probably why in the prototype in Bruce's book you'll see it has got a mechanism the same as what I've got there, not the Ferris mechanism, because it just wouldn't fit. And that would have been another reason that would have killed it, I think. Other than that, the only thing I've ever done, I've done the decals for the advertising van. Now Ferris did one of these in about 1953, 1954, and we have photos of it on the layout there at the Royal Easter Show. The original one has never been found, so I'm assuming that it probably went back in stock and they used the parts off it or something. Now I made 6 of these. This is the 6th one I kept for myself. I didn't destroy any coaches. These were old coaches that were lying around, I found in Queensland, completely rusty on one side. Hadn't gone through the tin plate, but they were not, you know, they were one-sided coaches and they were very poor. So I utilised them into something that, you know, which would have been lost forever, I think, if I hadn't been done. And that was it. That's the end of it. There was nothing else done for Ferris. The only thing I did at the same time was model toy. We'll do that next.